Session for the City Council. Today's Monday, February 12th. As you might know, we don't take votes or make decisions. It's mostly consensus and discussion at this point.
Recording in progress.
Item 1 is Exit 14 discussion. I was assuming Mr. Fentiman.
He is. Mayor, I just talked to him about 5 minutes ago. He said they were 2 minutes away. So we might want to move up item number 2.
Okay.
And talk about pickleball first while we're waiting for Gary to show up. It's probably good for these people too.
Item number 2 is pickleball discussion.
And Mayor Council, I'll start. So we essentially wanted to bring this as just a very brief discussion for today, but we're listening to you, and apologies for all the confusion. It's more than clear from the council that we want to steer away from the tennis courts at the high school. So we are working diligently to propose a couple of other locations. And I was actually talking with Councilmember Shu. Do you want to talk about your idea, or do you want me to talk about it? I think it's outstanding.
Well, we have a field over there across, used to be a Centennial School, it's across from Sanders Field, what they call it. And it's large enough to construct a pickleball court, a basketball court, a volleyball court, handball court. Also has all the facilities, a restroom, and we can also, right next to a power pole, put a bank of lights so it can be used at night. And there's an area big enough to put a gazebo and some park benches and make it a really nice recreation area. It's fenced in, has a sprinkling system there, and everything's available. All we have to do is talk to the high school, and they own the field, but they haven't used it in years, and the field's really deteriorating. And that might be a perfect solution for a little recreation area that we wanted. Mrs. Ogletree brought that up, that there was an area where you were at, saw kids there playing in the park, and this would be an ideal place. It's a good area, not really a lot of trouble area. I mean, it's a good residential area, and it's a big enough area and it has great parking. And I think that might be something that we can work on and kind of solve all the problems. The pickleball, we can have a basketball court, a volleyball, and just a really nice area there. And like I say, it's in a good neighborhood, and everything's there. All we have to do is purchase the land, and I'm sure the high school will probably, because they haven't used it and it's far from their campus. So that was just a suggestion, and it's in a really, really good neighborhood.
And Mayor Council, we've actually looked into this piece of land. So we have a MOU from, I think, 1997, and it's a 3-party MOU. So that Councilmember Shu is right. The school district owns the park. We provide water and utilities, and then the college maintains it. So it's a very awkward relationship that we need to fix.
And the college doesn't maintain it anymore. They quit doing it years ago.
Yeah,
they used to.
Yeah.
But they don't do it anymore. That's why I say this would be an ideal location for everyone. And like I say, you could put lights there and you could use it at night. It's out of a neighborhood where the lights wouldn't bother anybody. And I hope we could work on something like that to solve all the problems.
Excuse me, where is this?
Right there by the sorry.
So, Mayor,
Yes.
Yep.
If you don't mind, Councilman Shu, I think that's an awesome idea. The only thing I would say is we've been like a year and a half at this, something like that. I mean, I'd really like to see if at all possible, if we can just move forward as quickly as is possible. And Councilman Shu's vision, I really like it. And it'd be nice to have all of those things eventually, but I hopefully we can get the pickleball courts in and then move on to the rest of that visioning. I mean, because we have the money set aside from the last meeting, it was indicated to us that it's actually cheaper to do a green build. So I think that's the way that we should proceed.
Mr. Ruger, you had information. I don't call it Sanders or Saunders Field, I call it Centennial Park, because that's where
Yeah,
the old
it's
Centennial.
across from Sanders Field.
Do you have additional information on that piece of property in relationship with what you've talked to the school district?
Yeah, Jared Chatterley and I did meet with Bonnie Aaron last fall, and she did indicate loosely to us that they don't really have any plans for it, so they're not eyeing it for anything they need. I think we could have a great conversation with her and the school board to talk about us taking over that land. The original proposal for pickleball at the high school included just a little bit of physical education as well for their students to be able to use it for, I think it was like an hour 3 times a week. It wasn't extensive, but we could certainly still make that offer. I don't want to speak for the school board or Miss Aaron, but it would be a terrific donation to us, and it would really take a burden, I think, to them off of their hands. So we will have those conversations immediately and see if there's something we can do on that, and then price out what it would take to put in 6 pickleball courts there as well. The only thing that may be of concern is there is a lot of issues with the noise pickleball makes, and people are concerned about that in residential areas. I know personally of at least one pickleball court set up in Denver that had to shut down because there were neighbors concerning. So we'll do our diligence and make sure we talk to anybody who might be impacted and make sure we're all on the same page. But also we will bring a couple of other options, at least one other option too, just so you have that to choose from. But I really like the idea. We've been eyeing that piece of property for a while. It just sits there, it's part of the neighborhood, and I really like the idea of having a win-win and solving our pickleball problem with also beautifying that park and making it something really special for the neighborhood.
So, Mr. Ruger, is there any possibility that we can continue with pickleball at Trinidad High and then going forward developing Centennial Park in addition to the pickleball park? Because if we do that, if we use Centennial Park, we have to light it, we have to pave it, we have to fence it, and there are no public restrooms anywhere close.
There actually are.
Yeah, there's restrooms right there.
Yeah, it has restrooms.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, and there's a pole right there, you can put lights up. There's no lights at the high school.
And it is fenced. The only caveat though on the restrooms is they are not ADA yet, so there would be some money that would need to be spent to improve those, which we can do. But yeah, we can certainly look at that. To your question, there's nothing that prohibits us from doing the high school. However, what I would say is this isn't our last opportunity to have pickleball. This is just one opportunity, but I think this is probably going to be something that we're going to need to be the primary pickleball course for the next several years minimum before we find more money. So I think getting the location right is really important at this point.
Well, call me stubborn, but I still don't want to give up on that site at the high school. I mean, I've gotten at least 6 emails and several phone calls at my office asking for us to reconsider. I've tried to get back to the people that have emailed me and asked, well, I did call one person back and ask if they had any opposition to the pickleball courts at the high school. And I think the roundabout answer was no. They just want, I mean, it's a popular sport right now, and I think the money's there. I'm sorry, but if there's, I think we should continue with the pickleball courts at the high school and then do something with the development of Centennial Park. Maybe do basketball courts or some other playground facility, because that area of town doesn't have a nearby playground for younger kids. Comments, questions?
Mayor, I think what would help us to make a decision as well would be to understand what pickleball players in this area, what's the priority for them? Is it location? Is it a bathroom facility? What are the things that are most important to them and that would help, I think, for us to?
Would it be proper to ask for input from the audience at this time?
Mayor, we typically wouldn't allow that at a work session. So what I would recommend is maybe we invite our friends from the pickleball arena to come to the next council meeting next Tuesday and speak under public comment. And then that gives us a little bit of time to explore, this option for Centennial Park and other options as well, and have our ducks in a row a little bit more. For today, we just kind of wanted to bring this as a what's next and how do we proceed, as opposed to making any formal determinations. But I think already from the conversation, we have really good direction from staff on how to proceed.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
I'm thinking maybe if there's an organized group that they could put together a statement,
Yeah.
which would save time too, and just say, here's what we as a group think is most important, what we're hoping for.
That'd be terrific. And I'd love for our, we'll reach out to our Parks and Rec board as well. I think they should come and have the opportunity to comment as well to you all on their thoughts.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, I see Mr. Fenterman and Mr. Pace are here, so we're going to jump back to item number 1, exit 14 discussion.
Perfect.
Come on up.
Steve, can we put a
Yeah.
stick in the TV?
Yeah. Do you have a PowerPoint slide?
I don't.
You have a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna hand down to you guys from the ring.
Okay.
We need an IT guy.
Yeah, right? We're good to go.
Okay. I'm Gary Fennerman. I'm the operations manager for Long Enterprises and representing Mr. Tomino today. And Sal Pace is worked with us for years and went to city, I think, as well on multiple projects. So what we wanted to do today is just make sure the council has the opportunity to kind of look at a vision that we put forward in the past, but kind of been refined, but also to tell you a little bit about a really great meeting we had with Mayor Griego on Zoom to CDOT, which was, Karen, probably about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so I think Sal can maybe speak to that, because I think he initially set the meeting up, and Steve was going to try to be there. He wasn't able to attend, but Mayor Griego was able to Zoom in, and we had a meeting with Shoshana Liu, who is the head of CDOT, and John, who is the Southwest Regional Regional Director. And one of the clarifications we wanted to try to achieve was talk to him about budget for exit 14. So Sal, would you like to speak to that?
Sure, and I'll probably step back a little bit here. First, I'm Sal Pace, and I work with Jay Chanino and his various nonprofits, usually based on trying to help out Trinidad. And as an example, a few years ago, everything we were doing was all based on Fisher's Peak, what we can do to get Fisher's Peak to a state park. And a lot of Jay's vision right now is about what we can do to assist the city with transportation and try to bring as many dollars back to Trinidad as possible. And so, as sort of a background, a couple of years ago, the city, how about we pass out these? And these are all 1 pages, and then there's packets too. That was supposed to fit in, and it didn't make it in. So a couple years ago, the city, along with CDOT, completed a transportation study. It was something that we had heavily advocated for. We had CDOT, and it was a really good comprehensive transportation study, traffic study. Give you an idea, here's the full scope of it. It's a little more than 200 pages. and it covers a whole host of issues within the city, from exit 13, 13A, 14, Highway 12. It mentions, it touches on a transportation center, a multimodal center, and the result is right now they're CDOT and working with the South Central Council of Governments has earmarked $5 million to try to start working on some of these projects. And you guys are really in the driver's seat here on the direction of move. So you'll have this packet here, and
We
then
didn't have enough.
okay.
Yeah, could we have one too?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yes, I think did I short you guys?
Yeah, sorry.
And then there's one page that didn't make it in that should have made
Did
it.
everybody get the single page?
Yes.
Okay.
I did not.
Okay. And
I got the other one.
Doing it by weight, doesn't seem to work.
does everyone have a stapled packet?
No,
Okay.
no, sir.
No. Need one here.
Single pages?
I got a single page.
Okay.
Stapled
All
packet?
right.
Yes, sir.
There you go. Okay.
Somebody's got a couple extra in their pocket.
So, as far as, what the purpose of our meeting with the CDOT director and the Region 2 director and a few other folks who were there were to encourage funds to start to come to Trinidad for these projects. And what we heard from CDOT pretty loud and clear is they're looking for direction from the city of Trinidad as far as priorities. And so, if Exit 14 amongst these list of priorities is a project, it would be up to the city to say that, to state that. And then furthermore, and I think Shane said he'd be coming down here soon to have a discussion about that, CDOT proposed 3 different options for Exit 14, and that's option 1 is the single page that we handed out, and then option 2 and 3 are at the back of your packets here, and these 20 or so pages include sort of a summary of the study, but then we also included the description of the 3 options for Exit 14, and so there's a number of ways that the city could go about making this recommendation. You could open it up to public comment and receive input from the public. But ultimately, I think it'll be you as city council, if you want to ask for any of these options, to pass a resolution that would go on to CDOT, go on to South Central Council of Governments. And one of the big questions, and Gary touched on this in the meeting, was, hey, some of these options were priced out at $6 or $7 million a couple of years ago, and does that mean that they're off the table? And I think what we heard pretty loud and clear from the Region 2 director and from the CDOT director was, you tell us which option is the option you would most like to see. If it's more than the $5 million that's been said in there, hey, let's talk about other creative ways. But if it's close, if it's $25 million, it's probably way off the table. But something that's within sort of the realm of that $5 to $10 million range, you guys should take a lead and tell CDOT that. And then when that happens, the likely next step will be South Central Council of Governments, which has this pot sitting there of money, and it's been there about a year.
You mean TPR, right?
Yeah, the TPR. Yep, Transportation Planning Region, and there's an overlap of membership. If once a city makes a recommendation to the TPR, South Central Council, they will have a direction from the city which direction you want to go. And I think this is what you're going to hear from Aaron when he comes down, or not Aaron, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Aaron, I'm thinking about Shane. When Shane comes down for that work session is it's really, you guys are in the driver's seat. And then presumably what you'll see is some design money come in to design the very specifics of whatever the preferred project is that you all want. And I'm firmly of the belief that when there's money sitting there in government, that it's good to go and spend it. And when it's spent, that's when there's potential for the next round of money, or else there's always a risk of something being pulled back. And there's at least a sort of a $5 million hold right now for Trinidad for one of these projects. And I'd be remiss in saying that if I didn't mention, of course, Jay and his team and Gary will get into this, have visions, and that's something that we want to share with all of you, but ultimately it's your decision in what direction to go. The other piece that we discussed with CDOT, and something that, quite frankly, I'm talking about almost every single day now with CDOT and the executive branch of the state, is there's going to be some major transit and rail legislation coming this legislative session in an attempt to construct out a big portion of Front Range Rail, and also rail to the western slope going to Steamboat through Winter Park. And these aren't secrets. It's sort of, you can Google it and see there have been some stories sort of talking about this. The Senate President is the bill sponsor. But using, as my role, sort of advising and working with the Chimino group and with Jay's direction, something that I've said pretty loud and clear is, there better be significant money for Trinidad in this package when it comes out. I mean, we're talking a package that could fund billions of dollars of rail infrastructure, and for north of Denver, and I think it's critically important to make sure that Trinidad's taken care of. So those discussions are happening as well. I feel cautiously optimistic that something will happen for Trinidad, and I'm hopeful it could be, personally, speaking from my vantage point, the CDOT tore down a depot hall some 30 odd years ago, and there is a warming shelter coming, thankfully, because of the hard work of the city and Mayor Rico previously. But a depot hall could be built there, and I'm really hoping to get the line north from Trinidad up to Pueblo and then on to Denver. In sort of current planning dollars right now are just doing Pueblo to Fort Collins, and it's a huge frustration to me, because once you get from the north, it's not just about Trinidad, but once you get from Denver to Trinidad, Raton Pass south is mostly passenger until you hit Lamy, New Mexico. A lot of the track is owned by New Mexico. You could really connect New Mexico's rail runner with Front Range service all the way up to Fort Collins, and this is how I pitch to the folks up north. Once you can get to Trinidad from Denver, then you can hit Albuquerque and Los Angeles, and the infrastructure is already there. So I'm cautiously optimistic we'll be able to make some positive movements for Trinidad in this package. It's largely going to benefit the north. So that's my update. And then, do you want me to take questions, or do you want to go over Jay's vision and then take questions?
Well, let me say something, and then you can ask Sal. So I don't know if you know Sal's involvement, but he's been heavily involved in rail in Colorado for ever.
Yeah, so you want me to explain my history a little bit?
Yes.
Every piece of rail legislation in the last 20 years in this state I've written. And usually it's me sort of writing it and then handing it off to legislators and asking them to run it. So this Front Range Passenger Rail District we have currently, it's a little clunky. Sometimes I mess things up when I write them. It'd be nicer if we're streamlined a little better than we are, but this is a district that I helped. I wrote the bill for it and created it. I serve on the district. I used to serve on the Southwest Chief Commission, and I was prior life, I was the Democratic leader in the State House and county commissioner in Pueblo, and was very involved in trying to save the Southwest Chief. And in fact, we were the only project in the history of the U.S. to win 3 consecutive Tiger grants to save the chief. Trinidad was the official applicant for, I think, the second of 3 successful Tiger grants. And Pueblo County, when I was a commissioner, we put in $250,000 towards one of those Tiger grants. In fact, Jay Chimino, where I worked for him, he put in $75,000 for one of the Tiger grants. I'll tell you the story. I called Jay up and I said, Jay, we need this certain amount of local dollars to go after this Tiger grant. Don't worry, we're not going to win it because it's just all these little towns coming together. We had in Kansas and Mahanta and whatnot. I said, we're just $75,000 short. Can I put you down for a commitment in case we win? Well, we're not going to win. Don't worry. Like 6 months later, I called
So
Jay.
he came to see me.
I called Jay back 6 months later. I said, hey, Jay, I've got good news and bad news. Well, we won that Tiger grant, and you committed $75,000 towards it. So I've been very involved in passenger rail, even creating the Transit and Rail Division back in 2009 when I was in the legislature, an amendment to a big infrastructure package bill to fund it and create the first division in the state as CDOT for this purpose as well.
So I think from the city's perspective, and I know it's through Jay, but you got one heck of a advocate for the railroad. And I don't think we could have a better one. And I don't want to speak to some texts that he's received lately, but I think there has been some pressure applied and pressure received on potentially getting this going. So I don't think there's any activity that needs to happen at this point. I don't think, but maybe there is maybe some. If you're interested in having a depot paid for by the government, probably this is the time. So I know we could ask Sal to help if you choose to want to go forward, and but it is at council and the community's discretion.
And let me just say, if there is money set aside for Trinidad for this purpose, the way it would work is, again, there would be design money that would be sent to the city. The city would be responsible for hiring consultants and designing it, and then there potentially would be capital money. And the reason there's an opportunity here is because the governor and his office are committed to passing a big rail package in the legislature, and there's a rail bonding program out of the feds called RRIF, Railroad Infrastructure Fund. There's about $30 billion sitting there. It's a loan program. The interest rate is it's in statute the equivalent of the cost of managing the loans, so it's like close to 0%. And so let's say hypothetically the state can generate 50 to 100 million a year for rail projects. Oh, and it's a 35-year payback as well. So we're talking about anywhere from 1.7 to like 3.5 billion potentially of rail infrastructure projects for the state. And I really feel like if we're not a part of it now, it's a lost opportunity. So that's why I'm just encouraging, and I'm also pushing for, full disclosure, I'm pushing for everything south of Denver, but probably Trinidad at the top of my priority list.
Also, it's my understanding that the mayors of Colorado Springs and Pueblo are supporting this notion of extending rail service all the way to the Front Range rail system all the way down. So it's like a unified Springs South Front Range rail, correct?
Yeah, and I can tell you, I know the mayor of Pueblo's trying to get some folks together this Friday to talk about it, and Mayor of Colorado Springs trying to get together later in the month to talk about it.
And then we want Trinidad, obviously, given that you want to go forward, become part of that advocating group of mayors and council people.
Questions, comments?
What you're presenting to us, does it have anything to do with exit 14 in particular?
For the rail piece? Not particularly. I see them as two sort of distinct projects, except for the fact that they're nearby. And the way that they'd be managed by you at the city is you'd be getting planning dollars for exit 14 if that's and if that's your priority, and then you'd be getting planning design dollars for a depot as well. And so those would sort of be, I'd imagine they'd be handled by two separate sort of consulting design firms.
So if we'll switch over if there aren't any other questions, but.
Does anybody have any questions, comments about the rail?
So,
Question.
over the years, I've been accused of at least having one rose-colored glass when we look at this. Aaron?
I did have a question that may shape this discussion. As far as I know, at the TPR, the money that's earmarked for exit 14 at this point is in the 10-year plan. So I mean, has there been any indication that that's going to be altered? Because the last time that this was brought up to the TPR, CDOT succinctly and completely said that it is a 10-year plan. So there's no indication that any of this happening shortly. I.e., I mean, we can have any selection or wish that we want, but it's still a 10-year plan. So quite a while down the road.
Yeah, well, and as background for everything, and this was this goes back to Federal Highway Administration requirements, and as your representative of the TPR, Councilor Williamson knows as well. But at some point in federal law, an entire process was set up to prioritize projects, and there's a long term, there's 10-year, there's 4-year, and there's always a goal of moving something from a 10-year up to a 4-year. The advice I was given actually by the head of Federal Railroad Administration about 15 years ago is like the best way to make sure you get tomorrow's dollars is to get the design work done today. And so once you have, it never hurts to have a project designed and on the shelf so that when dollars open up, it's there.
I'm sure grants come up and they're looking for
shovel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And from my perspective, the sooner that a design is done for this, for what I like to do up in Denver, it makes it easier for me to go and say, hey, there's a project, right? It might be on the 10-year plan. Can we bump it up to the 4-year? But I right now it's not in line for the next round. It's in line for the next round after that. But I think getting, if we're capable of getting design money for it and getting it designed, then it makes it easier to bump it up.
Even to that, if I remember right, CDOT offered their environmental and historical investigative ability so that we wouldn't be spending dollars to do that, because obviously they have means to do it more cost effectively than we do. So my point in saying that is they do show some flexibility in that regard at least. So point taken.
And I think they would cover the cost of the design work. And I think the way it would work is they'd hand you the money and probably work with the design firm jointly, but let the locals sort of drive the discussion on it. And I think the sooner that a design is done, the sooner it'll make it easier to chase money for it.
And Mayor Council, if I can just interject here. So when Gary and Sal and I met and the mayor joined us a little bit later, I did mention our project with LUBA, because that does factor into this. So our transportation system project. So where we're at right now is we've applied for a grant to do a feasibility study for that transit system. I think if we played our cards right, we could incorporate into that feasibility study how these proposals would connect with that system. That's a pot of money to start that discussion, and also do some community engagement about our ideas as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
One more thing I'd just like to throw in, and Mayor Rico was really good at pointing out to CDOT, and I think and the first time he said it, I wasn't sure if it was a good thing or a bad thing, but it's really good. He kept stressing to CDOT that the design of I-25 through Trinidad has had a lot of negative impacts in Trinidad, where access from east to west has been hurt, mobility has been hurt. There have been certain neighborhoods that have been lighted because they're difficult to access. Let's say 5 Points, for instance. And in the case of the depot, every time I talk to the governor's office, I talk about the depot, I tell them CDOT tore it down and you haven't rebuilt it. As a reminder of all the things that CDOT did to this community. I'm wholeheartedly of the belief that Trinidad deserves more than any other community per capita because of the design mistakes of CDOT in the past. And I think that every time I talk about it, no one disagrees with me, but I think it helps us with our argument to try and pull down money for Trinidad, frankly. And I have to credit Phil Rico for starting this narrative. At first, I wasn't sure if it was a good one or not, and in hindsight, it's brilliant.
We mentioned that too during when I attended via Zoom that day. That one area of Arizona and Pine Street has been decimated by that interstate, and there are people now looking at apartment complexes in that area, and they're being renovated. So I think it would be to our benefit to use that, and I did mention that too, that we need that. If we're getting private money to restore historic buildings, I think CDOT should help us to try and make that area more appealing as well. So maybe, this is just a suggestion, if you just go through these designs and kind of explain the three options we have. Is that the way you want to go, or?
Well, what we have is tying in to design 2, which at one point, my understanding was that was kind of where council was leaning. So I haven't, to be honest with you, Karen, I haven't spent much time looking at one or three. But again, like I said, I've done some of this, many grants relative to Trinidad, and I always go in assuming we can get them done, and we get them more often than not. What I heard coming from Director Lou and from Shane, right?
Yeah.
Shane was, I know you had a $5 million kind of a set aside. Do not let that stop you from going down the road that you prefer. She said, we have silos. That was the word she used, silos. And the 5 million to 10 million isn't the same silo. So when they say 5, it's 5 up to 10.
Okay.
Now in that meeting, Shane, and I don't know, he probably does this a lot, didn't see within that budget, option 1, 2, or 3 would fit in that budget. So I said, you tell us what we want, we'll try to figure out how to fund it. So with that, and I think some of you have been on council long enough, you'll probably have to remember some of these sketches, but we have done a few addendums, and that's what I really wanted to walk through. So probably almost a year ago now when CDOT came down, we had talked about connectivity from east to west in particular and how we might go about this. Now this is a vision, it's not a plan. The city's got to make the plan and go out to the community and get their input. So again, this is just something that we saw could help with connectivity and utilize a new exit 14. So walking through that, Can we have to go a little bit, Steve?
You should be able to,
Oh,
are you just trying to?
I think we can kind of get the gist of it.
Yeah, I got you here. Maybe. I'll get you figured out.
That's right. I think we're just missing this base down here.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll keep talking and I'll get this going for you.
So, option 2 from CDOT was putting in a new exit that came in between the highway and the J&J building. Requires, I think, there's a little addition off the side of the J&J building. I think there was talk about the city requiring it and taking that out. And given that, I think it functions. So this is currently the exit comes across and comes into 5 Points, which 5 Points has been a pretty tangled intersection for a long time. In fact, I know about a year ago, it was snowing, and as I pulled off on exit 14, I forgot that there was incoming traffic. And I went all the way to the left, and I sat there, and then I picked up Mr. Mayor Rico, and I took him back and I said, shouldn't there be like a yellow line here that says they're coming this way, coming back into the road? So this is the exit. This is the proposed option 2 by CDOT, which comes down and connects right across Broome Street. About is where that would come in, and this is Broome right here. And then they had a right-hand exit that would take you up to what is 5 Points. So the proposal that Jay had initially talked about tied in actually to the expansion of the park and parking. And if you're going to have 5,000 people at the park, where do they park? And we said, here's this underutilized CDOT parking area, and let's make that work. Okay. So the problem was that if you were to turn left off of the new exit, Jay had proposed between the stanchions that hold up the freeway that there'd be an entrance. And what we didn't talk about is the traffic stacking that could happen if somebody turns left and somebody wants to go down Commercial. All of a sudden, it could get stacked up. So this is a very small change, but
Just expand it out.
expand it.
Yep. There you go.
Ooh, not that big. All right, should have come down and practiced. So if you see here, that's been expanded to a right-hand turn lane. So if you came off the freeway and wanted to go into the parking area, now you've got like a 5-car stacking lane to turn in. Then this all exists. The parking, what we're saying here right now, if you remember, right against Commercial, some of it is undeveloped. There's dirt. So if you needed the additional parking for festivals and so on, it would be easy. We'll just keep it from expanding on it.
It'll still move the screen, so don't touch it, but you can point.
So, if it was decided, this could be expanded to hold more parking as there are more activities. But you'd enter off of Commercial and then come right in. And this is what Karen was just talking about. This is the development area that they're putting in, working on apartments and having the college tie-in. And so this is one of the other changes is how do you clean up coming down Arizona and hitting the barricades and the one-way, two-way, which way kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is those could be taken out, and what we put in here is a little roundabout. So if you wanted to, if you're coming down Pine, you're right, don't touch the screen. Coming down Pine, you can come to the roundabout and exit straight on without doing the gymnastics, because right now that's a one-way street. So, now you could just go straight in and go into downtown. So connectivity. Here?
Gary, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Where's the on-ramp to 25 that's across from where the off-ramp would come in? The southbound on-ramp?
It is passing over this. So it would be like right in here.
So this is.
So this is underneath the,
Okay.
underneath the on-ramp.
Okay.
I know there was a discussion with Ryan Giving, I think, in the city plan, one of the options is potentially taking out the on-ramp. I didn't put that in this because to me, that seemed like an awful big asset to that part of the community, but I mean, it's your plan, not ours, but we didn't focus on taking out the on-ramp. It seems like there's a big part of the community that accesses the highway south from that on-ramp, so.
It's just not shown in this drawing at all, so I'm trying to figure out where.
Where
the
it's,
curb cuts
so
would be
it,
for that.
this is that new exit or entrance. The on-ramp starts right at the corner of Broome and Commercial, so right at this little V,
Okay.
and then comes up on here. So the freeway, as you can see, kind of, here's the south and northbound, kind of comes like this, and the on-ramp comes kind of right in through here,
Okay,
okay?
all right, thanks.
So the stanchions that'll hold it up, except for right at that, the beginning, that first 50 feet or so. And this might not be exact, that's why we're not planners, dreamers, right? So we could do some expanded parking there. So in this, it kind of takes care of the issue with Arizona and Pine. It kind of cleans that up for the new development going in, and then gives them a clear access to Nevada. So instead of doing the jogs, they could, if you were coming down, you wanted to go to Nevada, you just come right through and straight on. So how does this tie in to this? As Director Lou said, let's talk about exit 14, not talk about the 6 blocks. Because until we figure out 14, we're getting ahead of our skis, really. So this is a vision for you to have. And I think the focus is your final request for exit 14. And if it winds up with this design, basic design, does this make sense to try to improve the connectivity across the city? And again, it's not vetted. You know, the planners may look at that and say it's one of the goofiest things you ever saw, but that's why we're in the car business and not in the road planning business. But it's a vision. It's just a vision. It's something for the city and the planners to take from there. So then if we can kind of scroll up, what this is all right, so here's the freeway. This is the J&J building, I think, the Haddad's, I think, on that. There's a little extension that comes off of this one that comes over into here. And the road, I think, would necessitate that be acquired. I don't know if they're connected. I think it's a different business, actually, even. I think it's that tire center that's in that very, very most southern piece of that.
It's just a carport. It's just a carport. It really isn't.
it's part of the Hayden.
Yeah, it's just part of the Hayden,
Okay.
yeah.
So, if it's obtainable, then this would be paralleling and then coming in this little area here, you can see that's the start of Broome Street. So that would clean that up, and some sort of a moniker as you come into the city, recognizing Trinidad and as Jay always said, the city of champions. So, okay. All right, let's see. Next. So this is kind of the other perspective. So this is the Haddad building. So then coming off the on-ramp, this is what swings back north and comes up Commercial to 5 Points. And given that the city were to acquire that entire building, how that could fit into Mayor Rico's. I assume it's still thought about that could be a park in that area.
Yeah, we haven't, Gary, and Mayor, if I may, we haven't gotten to that level quite yet, but
No.
it's not off the table.
Right, okay, so again, it's a vision. So if that was a park, this building could, you know, maybe, it's kind of a cool building, how it steps up and things, and, you know, how that could possibly be utilized. Just again, a vision. Okay, so this was drawn before we realized how tight that pinch point is. So I think if you see the cars going opposite the current direction of traffic. So I think if the exits to stay, which I think we all think we probably should, then it would remain being one directional, and, you know, almost be opposite the freeway entrance. But that could get you back to the college. It could get you into the new development area, going through the, underneath the overpass, you know, makes easy direct access right to Nevada. So this is, I think, the question that you're asking, you know, how does that work under the freeway? So currently, this is a curve, and this section here is all dirt. And as far as we can tell, at one point, there's talk about coming in on the outside, and there's a, between the off-ramp and this pillar, to put an entrance in like this, it's just too tight. You couldn't get off the highway and come back in. It was in violation of all the codes. So this actually, I think, works better. It was just a little bit different vision to enter under the highway and have direct access driving through to Nevada and then get into downtown. There was some pictures that were circulated maybe a couple months ago. It was pretty interesting. I think it was in Portland maybe. They did exactly this. And on the pillars, they would have artwork that was on the pillars. And then there, on the weekends, at the pillars, they would set up like a farmer's market, which was all kind of cool.
That's my question. When you were presenting this to CDOT, did they have any issues with changing what's underneath the freeway?
Not that they presented, but honestly, Director Liu was kind of said, you know, really interested, but let's get exit 14 figured out, then we'll talk about this. But
so there was no bar that you heard that you can't do anything?
No, nothing that we heard that said it was a no.
As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Liu said that underneath the viaduct is our property, correct? And that it's our obligation, or if it's our desire to clean up that area, then it's our responsibility to clean up that area. But then I think it was Mr. Ferguson that made a comment that there's a grant called Safer Streets, and Karen Wolf mentioned the grant for the riverbank. That's where we got the money for that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking there might be a connection. Steve, is it the same?
Yeah, Mayor, and I think we need to do a little research. My understanding is that is all CDOT right of way
Okay.
under the viaduct. So it'd be, you know, very abnormal for CDOT to own the viaduct itself and then us to own and be part of the land underneath.
Okay.
So we'll do some research on that, and we can also have that conversation at TPR and with our local representatives of what can and can't be done. In fact, just information, this morning we had a meeting with CDOT regarding the new Circle K, and there were a couple of caveats they threw in some boundaries outside of the CDOT right of way where they have some administrative rules as well. So there's a lot to figure out on this. And I think,
Okay.
to Gary's point, I think we need to just keep in mind, this is just visioning at this point.
Right.
And then we'll flush all this out with our community and our stakeholders.
And then I think one thing that did come out of that, I think Mayor Griego, you made the comment is when they did this, they kind of zero-scaped it and walked away.
Yeah.
And if you go under there now, it's pretty rough.
It is.
And so, you know, again, our little poke in the ribs to CDOT is maintain your
Property.
your property.
Can we cite him for code
Yeah.
violation?
All right, and this is the last piece. So this is kind of, only reason it's in this presentation is because in that vision is that this is the look of the depot that was there from early 1900s, I think 1950-ish. It was bigger. It was a Harvey House hotel over here, and but there was 3 depots in the U.S., all of the same design. So Los Angeles, Albuquerque, and Trinidad all had the same design. So the one in Albuquerque still exists, one in LA still exists. Yours was torn down. So not that we have to, you know, restore that architecture, but it is kind of cool to tie into history. And the location that was proposed is kind of straight across from the waterworks building on the opposite side. And again, this ties into the expansion of the park. And I think Mayor Griego had said that, you know, it's really not that far. Let's say we get 400 people parking under there, right? If they walk to the edge, they can come around on Anma Street, and I think if they walk the other, they can come around on Commercial. This was the thought of putting a pedestrian bridge right into the park. So if someone comes with extra money that you have no idea what to do with, a pedestrian bridge would be directly to the park. But I mean, all these are visions, right? And just things to think about. Because again, it's as much as I think Jay would love to have seen all of this put in place in his vision, it's your vision, to be honest with you. So he's asked us to share it with you and put it into your future decision making. And I think the biggest takeaway is they asked for a written proposal on exit 14 as soon as you can. So while the money is there, I just encourage council to move forward before that money goes away. You know, as I said, I'm doing a lot of grants, and I've had grants on the school that come and go and disappear, and while we're working on one, they're changing the rules to something else, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that project is getting close, and you know, that'll be another great asset to the city.
So, thank you. To Mr. Fentiman's point, so when we talked with the city manager and with Mr. Fentiman and Mr. Hayes, we talked with Shoshana Liu, Mr. Ferguson wants to come down next month. So we thought it would be a good idea if this presentation was given to all the council. So when Mr. Ferguson comes down next month, we have a good idea of what option we want. And somewhere along the line it was mentioned, well, what is the city of Trinidad willing to contribute to the option? So it's my understanding, and you tell me if it's differently, Mr. Ruger, but the city will have to buy those properties, correct? The Bell property and the Haydeck property?
Mayor, council, I guess that's entirely dependent on what we decide we want to do.
Okay, but I mean, I got the same impression
Yeah.
that Mr. Fentiman did, that we're looking at exit 14. I mean, option 14.
And Mayor Council, just to remind you, we do have committed funds for, really they were for 5 points improvements, but I think you all have kind of segued into purchasing those properties. So we do have some funding available to consider that. So that can in part be our contribution as well.
Okay. Questions?
I want to know, is there anything, if we just said, yes, CDOT, we want option 2, is there anything about that, us getting behind that, that prohibits this plan from happening eventually?
No,
Okay.
no, I think they're connected but independent. I think everybody at one point when we brought this up liked the idea of improving the connectivity. I think it's, honestly, you know, we talked about, some of that is just signage. You know, it's signage, you know, maybe, you know, a curb cut here, you know, a roundabout there, but it's not a big project. It looks bigger on paper than it looks in reality, because the roads are pretty much there. I mean, if you come down Arizona, you know, you just gotta move the Jersey barriers, I think, out of the way. You know, putting that little roundabout kind of cleans up the connectivity there. But again, it's not a complicated roundabout like 5 points. You know, it could be a, you know, a little grassy circle, you know, almost that goes through there. And the roads are pretty much under the viaducts already. So I think an awful lot of it is signage.
And I would add that I think the first step is the city giving some direction to CDOT and the TPR. And if that's saying these long list of projects that you studied a couple years ago, exit 14 is our priority, and of the 3 options that you suggested, option 2 or 1 or 3 are the one, option 2 is the one we'd like the best, if possible. Then it's asking for some design money. And what, I mean, once you guys say this is your priority, I'm going to go and try to shake them for design money, just to be clear. Then the design money comes to you, and then the specifics, like some of, you know, Jay gets into curb cuts and different alignments and whatnot, that gets worked out in the design process that you guys oversee.
Okay. In fact, my one rose-colored glass heard from Shane that if you tell us this, I've got money for design. That's what I heard, but maybe. That's how I heard it.
Well, and they've been hearing about this a lot from me for the last 5 or 6 years. So I think, you know, personally, I think if the city gave them direction, I personally just feeling confident that they just want to shut me up. I think I could shake them down some.
And Mayor, since we have Sal here, Sal, do you mind talking a little bit about, A, is there, in this vision, is there any right-of-way acquisition involved? And B, how would we approach that with BNSF particularly?
As far as BNSF, you know, I can tell you that they've gone through ebbs and flows with their willingness to sell. Having just dealt with them with other projects, and they, you know, a few years ago they were a little more at ease with selling. There is a acquisition and disposition office at BNSF, and if there's a need for any acquisition of right-of-ways, I can connect you with those folks. And you know, I'm working with BNSF pretty regularly through the Front Range Rail stuff. You know, what I can say right now, they're sort of in the attitude, they're a lot more interested in long-term leases than they are in sale, which probably is more affordable, but less long-term sort of assurances. As far as some of the properties adjacent to the depot or the current stop, there's a lot of confusion about who owns what. That can be cleared up. I think, you know, looking at the historic record, you know, there's a little bit of disagreement between BNSF and CDOT over who owns which parcels and what type of control. And Amtrak has a long-term lease too. You know, where the platform is, It is not from my recollection, it is not an Amtrak property, it's a long-term lease from Amtrak. And I think, there's a lot of folks who are willing to help out with this.
And then last
It's not totally easy, sorry.
It's going to be tougher.
Yeah.
We've dealt with that before.
So I was just gonna ask the council, and this is just from my education, Gary mentioned that the 1950s train station was torn down. I had heard that it washed away in a flood. Does anybody know what
It
really
was
happened?
damaged in a flood.
Okay, that's what
But
I
it's
thought.
Most of it, half of it was damaged, and then they kept a section
Okay,
for the operator and that, then they tore that down after.
okay, cool, thank you for that.
I wasn't that old, so I don't.
We're both right.
Was there a
Exactly.
hotel there too at one
Yes,
point?
that was a Harvey
Yeah,
House.
Harvey House.
I always considered Harvey
Like my
House
grandma
as the 1930s Hooters.
My great grandma, so. Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, when we're talking about the design of this exit, how did I'm thinking about those people that own their dwellings adjacent to that off-ramp. They just cut off their front,
Right?
It's true.
and that would be, if we could get CDOT to reconfigure that exit, those people might have a better chance of getting a better frontage on their properties, more appealing. Any comments, questions?
My question is, if we come up with Trinidad's recommendation, I think it's going to carry significant weight, right? But it still doesn't bypass TPR, to my knowledge. So the TPR is still going to have to wrangle that out and ultimately vote on it. And then there's also the concern of the combination of the South Central and the Southeastern. If that goes through, that can further complicate it. And I'm not in any way trying to muddy the water, because to be honest, I really would love to see that exit reconfigured, especially in a way that reunites Pine Street, Arizona, into ease of access from the highway. It's just, I'm thinking out loud. There's potentially a lot of hurdles, and it's a complete unknown as to what the combination of those two TPRs will do to this. I'm hoping it does not happen. It seems likely that it will, though.
Well, and I think, personally, right now on the 10-year list, it has implement some of the, I might have the language a little off, but implement some of the recommendations of the 2022 traffic study. And I think your recommendation would go into the TPR, and it would probably, TPR would then amend it to implement some of the recommendations to implement option 2 of exit 14 of the traffic study. So it would start refining it. And I think the closer we get, like I said, the closer we get to a design on the books, the easier it is to get it funded.
Yeah.
When you get a design, and we actually, sorry, are you done, Eric?
After Frank, I'm good, thank you.
When you do the designs on these, we pick one, are you asking us to pick one, or are you asking us to look at each option and to see what the cost would be? Because one of these might be more valuable than the other.
So we asked that question with Karen there, and they said, you tell us which one in general you would prefer, and let us worry about funding it. And probably 2 is the most expensive, because one is the roundabout at 5 points kind of thing. But they said, all of these are within that silo. That, again, I think Steve, you had heard them kind of say it's a $5 million silo. They said it's a $5 to $10 million silo, and there's none of these designs that couldn't fit into that. They said if we go over 10 million, and
Well,
Shane said that it's not going to be over 10 million. He said,
on the designs, like particularly number 1 option, we wouldn't have to purchase any of that land. On the other ones, we would. That's what I'm just kind of looking at, so if we have enough money, if they are willing to sell, I don't know, we talked to them before, and I don't know if we've ever got a direct answer on that, have we?
No.
Not to my knowledge.
They're, Mayor, Council, I'm glad you brought that up. We have had conversations with them. So because of surveying, appraisals, all of that stuff, CDOT's process, which we're following, so we're eligible for future federal funding, it's a little bit more robust than what we would normally do. Our understanding is that there's potentially an interest to sell. I think the IUPAs are very interested. I'm not sure about Mr. Bell yet, if he's fully convinced. So there would need to be some conversations there. What I would also recommend is, if you guys really like one of these designs, Sal and Gary are correct. This is just visioning. We still need to flesh out a lot of things, but this would be something we could start taking to the community, to the college, getting their feedback, that type of thing, and then TPR as well. But yeah, to answer Councilmember Shu's question, though, we have no assurances that they want to sell it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So again, this I'm probably speaking out of school, but Mr. Bell reached out to a realtor who reached out to Jay not too long ago to say, you want to put a offer in on our building.
Okay.
So I think he is willing. I think the question is at what price. But it sounded like he reached out to Jay ultimately and just said that's something the city would need to be.
And Mayor Council, I'm glad Gary mentioned that. One of the things I think that's really cool about, even though it takes a lot longer going through CDOT's process, is they also have some money available for assistance for relocation or offset directly to the business owner. So it's not just purchasing the property, which we would have to do at assessed value. We can't make an offer above and beyond. But the business owners themselves would get a little bit of compensation as well directly into their pockets, is our understanding, to offset the impact that they experience.
Cool.
So that's kind of a cool thing to offer them as well.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway from this meeting is a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the one step,
Yep.
first step.
Starts on the 18th.
I just,
Is that when he's coming down?
Yep.
Yeah, on the 18th of March.
if it's,
Yeah.
if it's important to this discussion, I don't know, but it would put us all on somewhat of the same page. So, reading from the TPR for our region, it's the, it's a two-part thing. It's South Central TPR CDOT project update. So it does have a PCN, which is their number to indicate, that it's an actual project and it has a file and exists.
It does.
Correct, yeah. The title is Exit 25, I-25A, Exit 14 southbound ramp improvements. The scheduling is 10-year plan project, scope to be determined. The phase that it's in is planning. And then status updates or issues. That list says City of Trinidad working on purchasing right-of-way needed for ramp construction. Design is on hold until further confirmation from Trinidad that the right-of-way will be obtained. The monies set aside are $5 million. So I mean that's.
Yes.
As I recall, the work session that we last discussed this was one when Mayor Rico was gone and I was sitting there, and they wanted an assurance, the CDOT people wanted an assurance that Trinidad was at least willing to buy the corner from J&J if that was necessary, and we kind of said, but it seemed to me that that's what they were saying, is that to effectuate option 2, that's all that was really necessary, and all these other things are kind of on top of that.
Correct.
All great, I think, but they're on top of that.
Yeah, to put in that little, I don't know what you call it, exchange, you're gonna have to remove the one whole building of the J&J property. I mean,
You're talking about the small one.
this small building.
Yeah.
And Mayor
Oh,
Council, real quick, so, and I would like to coordinate with Councilmember Williamson. The last staff discussion we had with Jennifer and some of our local reps at CDOT, we asked them to move forward with at least putting together the redesign of the off-ramp to see if it's feasible. One of the comments she made is, $5 million seems like a lot, but it might cost a lot more than that. And they're trying, my understanding is they're working right now to see, the feasibility of it. We can follow up with them, and I'll get with Councilmember Williamson too to make sure we're coordinating with TPR.
Would it be appropriate at this time to ask council individually if they have a preference for any one option?
Yeah, we're not making final decisions, but preferences are probably okay unless Les smacks me in a.
No.
Says don't do that.
Smack me, no. That's fine.
Councilman Williamson, do you have, at this point, a preference?
I would really like to see that, I guess it is option 2, the redesign where it goes on to commercial right there. I mean, it gives us so many more options and really will help with a lot of issues. I mean, that's my preference.
Okay, we're just kicking the can down the road.
Right.
Okay. And Councilman Trujillo?
Just a quick question because I'm trying to understand.
Okay,
Okay, so this is not the existing,
no, that's the option.
this is the option.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this brings us all the way down here, giving them.
No, this is the exit now, so that would stop there. They put a cul-de-sac there going into, so this is something.
So where's
So
the?
this exit would come down right by,
We're gonna have to buy you one of those.
Yeah, so it gets better at it.
It says looking at these other two.
we'll ask Councilman Chu. Do you have an option? Think about
I'm
it.
still shopping.
No.
Thanks.
Councilman Chu, do you have an option? A preference for an option?
Well, I think 2 would work, but I think we may have to deal with 1 until we find out if we're gonna do those buildings.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta look at expenses and see what's going on. So, but that's my choice would be, if we could find out more information on that. And choosing this now is kind of silly until we get more information, I think, until we talk to them and see what the money's gonna be available and stuff.
Councilman Moore?
Well, every design study is pretty much predicated on accessibility, and I believe option 2 for me seems more viable and makes more sense. But like Councilman Shu said, the money aspect as well, because, well, the 5 million 2 years ago is not the 5 million today.
Yeah.
So.
Councilman Ogletree?
I had long hoped that we could beautify that entrance to Trinidad, and I think that exit 2 does the best job of that. And it's hard to know exactly how this dance works, but I think having a big vision and a bold vision is a good one. And I think that moves, I may be wrong, Sal, but I think that moves Denver more if we're saying this is what we're doing, this is our big idea. I think that motivates.
Have you ever heard the saying, it's easier to beg for forgiveness than ask for forgiveness? That's what we're doing. Councilman Trujillo, have you come up with a?
I'm almost there. I have one more question. So
Okay.
does San Pedro now connect into everything?
Could be.
Oh, okay.
Could be.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay.
This one goes straight here. Yeah, option 2.
Okay, and I like option 2 as well.
And Mayor, one last thing I wanted to mention. I think this is a great preface for us meeting with Shane when
Yes.
he comes on the 18th. So I think staff will vet a lot of these things, and then going into that meeting, we'll bring Jenny and Bob in, who've been working on the acquisition and the appraisals for those properties, so we'll have more information for you there as well. But one thing Sal and I talked about that I thought was an interesting thing for us to think about. So VUBA, as we've mentioned before, the goal would be to apply for some reconnecting communities grant funding later this year for that. I think Sal kind of had a great idea on how maybe we could do that, but also incorporate this into that funding request too, and just do a bigger project than even just VUBA. And Sal, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's thoughts on the 5 million that's allocated now being used as a match to expand the funding options to do a lot more than we would otherwise.
And yeah, and the reason I thought about that is that's what Director Liu told me originally was,
Yeah.
take that 5 million and maybe use it to apply for greater dollars with the feds as a local match and turn it into more. I have to say, although she mentioned that to me about a year ago, she did not mention it to us the last time we met, so I don't want to.
Yeah.
But it's an opportunity, and I also think asking that question of Shane and of CDOT could help propel that 5 million maybe from the 10 to the 4-year plan, or if there's a stated need there, or idea, concept.
Thanks, Al.
I wonder, I could be wrong about this, and I don't know, but I believe those dollars are a limited pool of dollars. So if we move 5 from the 10 to the 4, we're going to have to move something from the 4 to the 10.
Unless we can get more money sent down to.
Sure, and so I mean that's a big hurdle too. So,
But I think that's, I can't stress what they said at the meeting was 5 million is in the 5 to 10 million basket. Don't lock yourself into 5. It can be 10. So, and then Shane said, I've done this. This is not a $10 million deal. So you're in the right basket of money. You tell us what we want, what you want. We'll help design it, and we should stay within those guardrails. So I think I would suggest that you take that 5 million out of your head, to be honest with you, and ask for that, because that's what they told us. Is to them it's the same. Then it's kind of in sections. If you're going to the next one, it's 10 to 20 million. So we're in that under 5 million, 5 to 10, 10 to 20. So we're in that 5 to 10. So if it's 8, we're good. I think.
And Councilor Williamson, I'm hopeful that we can get some sort of special carve out to send more money down, so it's not bumping anyone else up the 4-year plan. Okay. Something to address a community that has been negatively impacted by past highway decisions, something very specific to this district.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for making the trip down to present.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Gary, can you stick around a little bit?
Yeah.
We have one more item that's pretty quick. Maybe.
Sure.
Okay. Item 3, update on the search for our new police chief.
Yeah, I wanted to, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to bring this as a discussion on today's work session. I know it's been a while since Chief Glorioso retired, but just to give you guys full transparency, Chief Glorioso availed himself of 30 years of accrued leave time. So even though his official or his ceremonial retirement was in August, his actual retirement was until the end of the year as far as the books and payroll goes. So we did want to get through that so we don't have 2 police chiefs making executive salaries in our tight budget season. And the other thing we really wanted to get through before we start the full robust search is union negotiations. And that's in sensitivity to not distracting the police department or the city from those conversations, which are very important, but then also so that Donna didn't just walk out and clock me over the head. So she's a very, very, very busy woman, and it's not just the police union as well. It's AFSCME and the fire as well. So all 3 of our employee unions were full reopeners this past year, so we negotiated everything in the contract, not just wages. But we're past that, and we're ready to move forward. I will say thank you to our police department, because certainly, there's things that we want to work as a community to improve, but I really have been impressed the way they've been able to handle some very tough challenges that's been thrown at them in the interim. So particularly Jen Lay creating the Homeless Coalition and really kind of spearheading that. That's a big thing for our community that I think is going to pay off in the long run. Our takeover of Noah's Ark and now the Trinidad Animal Shelter, that was something our police department helped us with. You've probably seen news about some of the recent drug busts. So very good things going on, and I just want to thank our police department for their willingness to just move forward and do a lot of things. So we are going to hire a professional company to come help us with the search. And the reason for that is because this is a community search. Ultimately, it's my decision, but I don't want to make it in a vacuum. So I really want to get our candidates out to a public meet and greet. I think it's important that the candidates come talk to you all, and I want to take all of that feedback and make sure we make the right decision. I do know that we have some internal members who are going to apply, and we absolutely welcome that. And then we'll see what the applications look like and go through the formal process. I would say it'd probably be very similar to your recruitment for me, but this is, Chief Gloriosa was there for many, many years, and so now is our opportunity, assuming that someone's gonna come in and spend another 20, 30 years in that position. We wanna get it right. And I'm really excited for this opportunity. I think our police department's ready to have a permanent leader. And so that's kind of the update. We hope to, if I'm giving you a timeline, I would like to see us do the recruitment through this spring, and then by early summer, make an offer and get somebody appointed. So I'll answer any questions on that, but again, I can't thank our police department enough for their support and their help in the interim and their patience with us as we go through the process.
Any questions?
That sounds great to me.
What budget item is the money for the services for the professional company coming from?
So we are looking at our fourth quarter marijuana right now, and so that might be an opportunity as well. But we are fortunate also that we have some salary savings, of course, by not having that full police chief appointed for the last couple of months. So there might be some opportunities there. We'll look. We want to keep it as low cost as possible, but having that professional help, I think, would really help, especially with a company who has a successful history in recruiting police chiefs. I'm in a fortunate position that I get to know just enough about everything to be dangerous, but I always can use some professionals to help me vet things that are more technical in nature. One of the big wins that I do want to highlight for the public and for you all, if you remember last year, our police department became accredited by their state organization. I don't want anyone to underestimate how big a deal that is, and for us to attract applicants and to also acknowledge our internal applicants and go through the process. That's something that's going to sit really well with us as a city. So I think we'll give everybody a fair shot, and may the best person win.
Thank you. Anything else?
So, I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
In that process, you mentioned potential having a meet and greet for citizens and council. So will hopefully we'll have a solid pool of applicants, and then will it be a first round and a second round? Is that the intention?
Yeah, so thank you for asking that, Councilmember Williamson. So obviously we'll yield a little bit to the, I'll call them the headhunter, the company that we hire, and respect their advice on the process. But any public meet and greets, I wouldn't think it would be for everybody who applies. It'd be once we've gone through a process and boiled it down to a handful of candidates or less.
And then you did say that the decision is yours, right?
Yes.
But you would like to not make it in a vacuum, so you get other input.
Absolutely.
I just think it's important that it's super clearly understood by everybody. Yeah, that the decision is yours. And when I say everybody, I mean from the organization doing the help to the candidates themselves. Because I think it'd be a lot longer to talk, but I think it changes a lot of dynamics, and I think it's important that that's known. And even with the people that you're interacting with, to get to those final two, right?
Yeah.
I think that's just important that that's known. So I think that's an
I appreciate that, council member. In fact, there was a rumor going around a couple weeks ago that got back to me that I'm going to bring in my buddy to be police chief. I want to just state for the record, for the public, I don't have a buddy to bring in. I have buddies.
I've heard about your police chief, buddy. Just kidding.
But I think you all know me well enough. Public service is my passion, and I would never never do anything to sabotage a search like this, and it's just very, very important to me, and I know to you all, that
Yes.
we pick somebody who's best for our community. And when I own the decision, I definitely don't want it to be in a vacuum. I want your feedback as I make that decision, and that's just good local government.
Are we gonna have the interviews with public leaders that we did like for city manager and have them over at the library?
That's a terrific question. Yes, we want to bring in stakeholders, particularly those who would interact with the police department regularly.
Okay.
So for example, the housing authority, probably the Department of Human Services at the county level, those types of entities that law enforcement is so crucial for, the ambulance district, our fire department, those types of things where there's direct interaction. I absolutely want their feedback and their perspective as we go through the process.
I got a lot of compliments on the way, the process when we hired you. And I think if it's not broken, don't fix it, kind of theory.
Thank you, Mayor. Agreed.
Is it going to be a challenge for people who are applicants from outside, like out of state? I mean, they'll have to come in for the interview process.
Yeah.
It just seems like that might be kind of an expense. Like,
Well,
go ahead.
if I remember right, I believe, didn't we help with the travel expenses?
For the city manager applicants, I don't know how that would work for the police chief, but it's just something to consider, right?
I
It
mean,
just occurred to me.
there's a lot of ways to do it, I think. Maybe if this is leaving the scope of this, but I mean, potentially you can have a pool of applicants and narrow them down to your finalists through Zoom, and then bring the two finalists. So
If I remember correctly, what we did, we had a portfolio of all the vendors.
right.
And then we all went through that, all of the applicants and picked our top, I can't remember, do you?
Five.
Five maybe, and then from that went down to two.
And that's a great question too. So of course, anybody we choose, so let's say we get 20 applicants and we choose to interview 10 of them in the first round. Certainly we have some people internally who will be here ready to go and interview, and some people we probably will want to do them virtually. And I think that the point is we would only bring in people probably when we get to that point and have final candidates.
But still keeping in mind that it's your decision.
Absolutely.
Okay, we gotta drive that point home.
Yeah.
Because the word "we" keeps happening.
Yeah.
I say we in terms of this is something for our community, but absolutely, I will make the final decision. The buck stops with me on who we select.
Okay.
Will you have a committee who you're working with now?
Absolutely, we'll have an internal committee as well.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Flanagan.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I just was gonna make a comment, because in Colorado Springs, it's been 2 years now, but they just did that with the fire chief.
Uh-huh.
And my daughter at that point was a lieutenant, and when they got it down to the last 3 there, they took 4 of their firefighters that were, she was one of them, representing the lieutenants and women both. And that was, I think, whether it was the city manager's decision, but that was the last interview process. And they had some of the rank and file that, they had the respect from to give them their input as well. So that may be in your plan, but it seemed like a good practice.
Okay. We're on the right track.
Yeah, thank you.
No other business? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
What's the matter?
Are you okay here?
Yeah, all right.
Are we adjourned?
I think we're done.
Okay.